All right, we are live on YouTube. I want to bring in Facebook and X too. That's Atlanta Falcons on SI on Facebook, and that is at Scout Kennedy on X. We will get going for this gut reaction for the Falcons at Saints victory. It's been a while, been a long time coming. Feels good. So, and here we go. Let's go. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. It is the gut reaction on Sunday, week something. As the Falcons move to 4-7 and break a 5-game losing streak. And they did so by beating their most hated rival. And no matter how bad the season's going, no matter how bad the Saints are, it sure feels better to beat the Saints than to lose to the Saints. So we're going to get into it. We're going to get into the gut reaction. I already posted a bunch of takeaways on falconssi.com. We're going to run through some of those. We're going to hear what you have to say as well. That's why we go live. We're going to say hello to some folks too, including some members. A new member, Michael Quintana, 8666, has become a member. And it's just a good reminder, if it's one of the best ways you can support the show. I'm going to drop the link in the chat here real quick. You can also hit join. If you become a member during this podcast or any podcast, I'll give you a shout out on here, just like I did Michael. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate the support. So, couple things I want to get into tonight. And yes, the Falcons have come on after a 24-10 win. Game was probably a little closer than the score, than the 14-point spread might have indicated. The Saints left some points on the floor, on the field. Couple of missed field goals, some red zone missed opportunities. At one point, I think it was a 9-point game, and they left 9 points on the field. You're getting stopped on 4th and goal, 2 missed field goals, and there's 9 points right there. But the Falcons made some changes today. They made some good adjustments that were beneficial to what, in essence, was a short-handed squad. And yes, they were short-handed today. They made some adjustments. Wow, what a concept. And we'll get into some of those today as well. I want to say hello to some folks that have come in before we get going here. John Harrell, thanks for being a member. That's why he's got that bird in the chat. He's got the logo. He said, wait, we have play calls from under center? Play action? Did you say play action? Play action? You want to say play action? Yeah, and that's where Cousins had his initial success. So to start the game, you're just banging your head into a wall, Bijan into a pile, incomplete pass. And then the first real opened up play was a play action. I think it was to Mooney. And then later in the game, there was a nice play action with a floated pass on a wheel route to Kyle Pitts, and that was the last positive thing we saw from Kyle Pitts for the rest of the game. We'll get more into that as well. Tony says maybe Cousins has a little left in the tank. He didn't look great, but he did look good. Yeah, and again, it is the Saints. They're I don't mean anything against the Saints. This isn't a rivalry thing. The Saints aren't a good team this year. They're 2-9. And they were 23rd in EPA against the pass coming in. And where did I think, Kirk Cousins finished 16 of 23 for 199 yards for 2 touchdowns and an interception that wasn't necessarily his fault. Couple in there. It wasn't necessarily Kyle Pitts' fault either. Maybe a ball that shouldn't have been thrown, got bobbled around and tipped around a little bit. But, it was an efficient game when you've got a good running game. Something left in the tank. Yeah, I wouldn't expect him to be completely gone, but he's certainly not the future as far as, maybe we run it back with Kirk one more year. We're a playoff team, or if he had started all season, we were a playoff team. No. What he looked like today was a serviceable backup, which is better than he has. It's better than he has looked recently. So not a bad day at all. And congratulations, the longevity. That pitch and catch to Darnell Mooney put him as his 290th touchdown pass, 17th all-time, tied with Johnny Unitas. William Roller says, wowzers, as always, defense, good stuff. So a couple of the changes and then we'll get into some more comments. We came in, the 13 personnel. What is 13 personnel? 13 personnel, and they said it enough times tonight that if you're watching the broadcast, you probably saw it. But I started tracking this early because I'm like, this is 13 the whole time. And I wrote it up and I added it because I didn't want to change that. I made mention of this, that this 13 personnel is 1 running back, 3 tight ends. It was 13 personnel. It felt like almost the whole game. And I'm like, you never see 13 personnel. Not only was this the most 13 personnel the Falcons had run, I wrote, this is probably the most 13 personnel any team has run this year. Well, it wasn't just any team in the last 10 years. So the last time that anybody ran this much 3 tight end football was 2016. Now we go back to last week when ESPN's, I don't remember which Fowler it was, or Schatz or somebody, had said the biggest need on this team was tight end and defensive line. I'm like, no, sir, it's wide receiver, man. It's wide receiver. That's an every down position in the NFL these days. It's wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. In fact, they don't need just one wide receiver. They need 2 wide receivers. So instead of going back out there with 11 personnel and Kirk Cousins like they did against the Miami Dolphins, with Darnell Mooney, David Sills, and Kaderil Hodge, and leaving Charlie Warner on the bench and Kyle Pitts, that was what they attempted to do against Miami Dolphins, and they found themselves down 34-3. Well, what do you do when you don't have any wide receivers? Well, you don't play them. you don't throw them on the field and try and play them. You know what? We got 2 good running backs, a pretty good run blocking offensive line, arguably the best blocking tight end in the NFL, and a decent pass catching tight end that we can use as a second wide receiver. Let's go big. Let's go big against this team. So that was a very smart adjustment. Lean into what is stronger for you. Play action, running game, et cetera, et cetera. And it was unprecedented, really. First time in over 10 years that anybody has used that much. Austin, good to see you. So I want to know where this play calling was all season. QB under center, play action. I wonder if Kirk has something left. Let's see if we can string some wins together. Yeah, you go up against and that's why it hurt losing to the Panthers. I think if you had changed this, you're 4-7, you would have been 5-6 going to New York. If you had won that game against the Panthers and you got a chance to go 6-6 going to New York, who dropped to 2-9 today, 2-9. So, yeah, it was see if you can string something together. There's certainly the possibility. Art of the Genre, 6087. Thank you for being a member, my friend. He says, something is wrong with Penix as a quarterback. We can run under center with an ancient Kirk Cousins, and Penix won't do it. I'd like to hear the whole story on that. Again, one of the theories that I had was that they're so terrified of Penix being blindsided with Eli Wilkinson at right tackle. And God bless Eli. I don't blame the guy for not being good enough. It's not his fault that he's out there at right tackle. He is a backup guard in this league. He's a third string right tackle for this team. He's not good enough out there. That's not his fault, and I feel bad for him. I mean, overall, he plays okay except for the false starts. He plays okay for who he is, but he's a decent guard. He is a subpar right tackle forced into a tough spot. That's one of my theories, is that they're so terrified of having him back there that to the blind side with the right tackle as a lefty, that's the only reason. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. He's more comfortable there. No, you're more comfortable when you can dictate to the defense, when they don't know if I'm going to run or pass based on the formation, when I've got the running game and play action to work off of. That makes you more comfortable as a quarterback, not standing there being a sitting duck and being in third and long all the time. That does not make you comfortable as a quarterback. Troy, good to see you. We're about 9 minutes in right now. Save Through Jesus says, oh, that's it. Bra's got the big extension now. Michael, hope you're doing well. And out there in Arizona, good to see you, Michael Ronquillo. Corey, 13 personnel. My God, it was beautiful. He says, and then James says it looked like the 24 Cousins. Brandon Loco Fitz. How we doing, Scott? Love beating down the Aints. Kirk and Mooney were shockingly and suddenly good again. It's weird. It's weird with Mooney out there like that, isn't it? He had the nice post, but that first catch of the game where he scoops his hand underneath it and goes down and doesn't try and scoop it with his arms, but gets down like a shortstop and catches that ball, gets his glove hand underneath it, and then puts his hand on top of the ball. That was a beautiful catch. So, does this mean that, Mooney's back? No, Mooney's still going to get cut at the end of this next year, end of the year. He's still going to get cut. He's a $17 million cap hit and has been MIA all year. And again, what the Falcons do sometimes doesn't make any sense at all. but you can save $7-8 million by moving on from Darnell Mooney next year. Otherwise, you pay him a $17 million cap hit. Darnell Mooney playing like $17 million to you? Not for me. I'm moving on from him at the end of the season, but good week from him. Trey, a big hate week for me and Falcons versus Aints and Arsenal versus Tottenham Hotspur today. He's 2-0 and happy. Yeah, 2 good wins. I actually, the Spurs are so unlikable that I can't stand Arsenal. I actually cheered the second goal out loud against Spurs. That's how unlikable the Spurs are as a team. But yeah, and again, does this change the fact that the Falcons are 4-7? Are we talking playoffs? No, it doesn't. But it sure feels a hell of a lot better to have this discussion than the past discussions we've had the last 5 weeks coming off of frustratingly maddening losses, as opposed to beating the New Orleans Saints for sure. And as Oblivion Empire, Jason, good to see you. Good win. Taybro says Kirk Mania is activated. Michael says, I know we're just coming off of a win, so the firing of Raheem Morris is not much in the forefront, but what do you guys think about John Gruden? I don't. I don't think of John Gruden as a head coaching candidate here. Arthur Blank wouldn't do that. I mean, hell, if he's turning down Belichick for culture reasons, there's no way he's bringing John Gruden into this city with his baggage. Just no way. There's got to be other ways to do it. You know, someone's going to win the Super Bowl this year without John Gruden. Find a way to be like that team. So not for me. Marcus Cook, thank you for being a member. So I wonder what our offense would look like if we ran this. Our record would be like if we ran this offense all year. Under center, lots of play action. Is there any reason Penix can't do it? Marcus, I don't know, man. That's the one for me. Is I don't know if he's uncomfortable. It's your job to make him comfortable. Like I said, I'll repeat it, and I'll repeat it again and again until I find out otherwise. The only thing that makes sense to me is they're afraid of Eli Wilkinson on the right tackle and Penix's blind side coming out from under center. If you're in a gun, pardon me as I move back, you won't hear me as well. But if I'm in a gun and I'm straight back, I don't have a blind side. I've got a left and a right. As I see it and I can see the guy coming, I don't really have a blind side until I, set my feet and turn and throw. But that's only a millisecond. Whereas if someone's coming free off the backside and I'm in a 5-7 step drop, I'm blindsided for 5 to 7 steps. And you've seen Jalen Walker and James Pierce or some of these other guys come off the edge untouched. You got to know he's there. And that's the only thing I can think of. Troy Green, All Pro Diablo back today. And what a difference he makes. My goodness. That was another adjustment we saw. The Atlanta Falcons defense, their manhood was challenged coming out of the break. And the Saints went 15 plays. The defense bowed up and stopped them and got a stop. When they came back out, the Falcons go 3 and out from the shadow of their own goalposts. Saints went out of the first 18 minutes. The Falcons ran 3 plays in the second half. First 18 minutes of the second half, the Falcons ran 3 plays, and the Saints had the ball 16 of those 18 minutes and got 3 points. That's damn good. Now, would you have liked to have gotten them off the field a little bit sooner? Yes. But when the Falcons came back out the second time, I saw 4-3 for the first time under Jeff Ulbrich. I saw, and we had been calling it last year. We had been calling it, if they're as stand-up edges, we had been calling it the 2-4-5 because it was 2 defensive tackles, 2 stand-up edges, 2 inside linebackers. Well, in this case, if I wanted to stay consistent, I could have called it a 2-5-4 because it wasn't a nickel for the first time I've seen all year from Jeff Ulbrich, where he wasn't in a base nickel or dime defense other than specialty like short yardage situations. He came out there in a straight 4-3. Both edges, there were the light edges. James Pierce played more in this game than I remember seeing him play all game. I saw him in there on first and second downs, 3 downs of James Pierce. I bet his snap count is the highest we've seen all year after this game. 4 down, including James Pierce or one of the other edges. And then Ronnie Harrison, Caden Ellis, and Divine Diablo were all in at the same time. So that was the first time that I can really remember seeing them go 4-3 to try and combat the Saints running game. Okay, nice adjustment. I like it. I like seeing it when they're running it down our throats against our light personnel. Let's get bigger. Yes. Yes. I'm here for that. Thank you. Yes, Major says, thank you for the super. He says, this game saved Raheem's job. Boring win. Saved it for this week. Is he still on the hot seat? No, what we have coming back into this game? 7 games. It was 3-7. Said 7 games. They go 6-1. He's probably back. Be interested to find out. The thing is, if they go 6-1 to go 9-8, he's probably back. 5-2 and you're 8-9, probably not. Maybe 7-10. I think you're toast. But we've had these discussions. Can this team go 5-2? Can they be consistent enough to go 5-2? They went toe to toe with the Saints. And to be fair, they went toe to toe with the Patriots and the Colts too. But this, I don't see this team going and ripping off, a 6-1 record. We'll see. But he's going to get the opportunity because I don't think Blank's going to fire him mid-season. Not after just 1 season, maybe 2. If you say, because Dan Quinn got a year too long, and then they started 0-5 and said, well, I should have fired him last year. That's why he got fired in the middle of the season. Raheem's going to get the end of this season. He's going to get 2 years. Whether he gets 3 or not, we'll see, but he'll get 2. Unless something goes completely off the rails, and I don't see that happening. I tell you what, yes, Major, and I'll take a boring win over these maddeningly frustrating losses. And you know what? I don't mind a little 13 personnel, run it down your throats with play action and a big play here and there. I like that kind of football. What's boring to me is 4 wide and 3 and outs. Incompletion, punt. That's boring to me. Run, pass, punt. That's boring to me. This was some pretty good defense. And another thing I noticed in this game, the Falcons, for one of the first times any of us really can remember in a long time, they weren't blitz crazy today. So Tyler Shuck had only been sacked 5 times, and he played some pretty good defenses too. 5 times in his first 4 starts. Falcons got him 5 times tonight, and they got him and they affected him. So even the times they didn't get him, they got him rushing 4. A lot of the times they got him rushing 4. If the Falcons can get after the quarterback with 4, they become a very, very, very dangerous defense. And that's why you spend first-round draft picks on edge rushers, because Jalen Walker can beat his tackle on one side, and James Pierce can beat his guy in the other. And then if somebody forgets to put a block on Brandon Dorless, you got trouble. But you've got to be able to stop the guys on first and second down to be able to get in 3rd and 5 and longer in order to turn those guys loose. But the Falcons put pressure on Tyler Shuck with 4 guys tonight. That hasn't happened a whole hell of a lot. They were the 2nd highest blitzing team in the NFL coming into the night. And we'll see what they did, what their blitz percentage was, but I would almost guarantee it was lower than what we've seen in the past, for sure. Robert, he says, why couldn't the Falcons have put Penix under center? I hate this coaching staff. It's a good question. It is. It's a good question. And I don't have a for sure answer. I've got a theory, and if you need me to repeat it, if you missed it, I will. This is when I say about some of the things going off the rails. This team still looks like they're playing hard. They're not quitting out there. And it was when John Harrell says Kirk actually looked like he had some energy out there. I tell you what, I felt so good for him and so good for the guys out there when he hit that touchdown pass to Darnell Mooney, and they all celebrated. You could tell that they were happy for Kirk. They're behind Kirk. Kirk's happy for them. He's happy for everybody. So it felt like everybody was still together. And I want to see that. We want, as fans, we want this team to be successful, even as maddening as they are. We're not rooting. I've only rooted against, I think, one Atlanta Falcon in my whole life. Only one where I'd see him make a play and be like, oh yeah. I'm like, oh, it's him. The hell with that guy. In my whole life, I disliked one like that. We want these guys to be successful, and Kirk had some energy, and the offensive line was fired up for him and with him, and it was good to see. Tony Moore says, please, no more Cousins after this year. No, you're not going to. I wrote that up this week. I said, no, Kirk Cousins is not the answer. Oh, you got Kirk. What about him? He's got a $57 million cap hit next year. And he looks like a Mitch Trubisky serviceable backup. Who started for the Mason Rudolph, I think, started for the Steelers today. That's what he looks like. He looks like that guy. Poor man's version of Geno Smith. He looks like a $10 million backup quarterback right now. He's a $57 million cap hit next year. He's not back. He's gone. And the Falcons will take a $35 million dead cap hit. It went up 10 because he gets his roster bonus for being on the roster for this year. That roster bonus kicks in next year, whether he's there or not, because that was for this season. So it went from 25 dead to 35 dead. And they can split that across 2 years if they want to, but they'll save minimum $22 million by moving on from Kirk Cousins next year. I want him to go out with a good note and have fun. Hey, Kirk, remember he had those couple nice wins and some good things, but he got hurt. And yeah, that's a shame because he played some good football here. That's how I want to remember Kirk Cousins. Throw it to Charlie Warner, John Harrell on that. Yusef says, what percentage did Charlie Warner have this game? I don't know. We'll find out. I should be able to have that by tomorrow morning when the snap counts come out. But with as much 13 personnel as they played, he played most of them. With that, if he was at 60%, that'd be 4-0, wouldn't it? The Falcons would be 4-0 if he plays 60% or more. They'd be 4-0, and if it's 59% or less, they're 0-7. Oh, there we go. Joe Andrews. We have a kicker. Oh, man. How good does Zane Gonzalez look today? Greg Mundine coming in. Our kicker is money. And, man, what a big kick that was to start the game. You're watching that. Shuck hands the ball off to Kamara's face mask. It bounces. D. Alford picks it up. Great field position. Run into the line. Kirk drops back, looks around, and takes a sack. What are you doing, Kirk Cousins? You're a veteran. You're not a rookie. You can't take a sack there. Well, crap. Here comes Zane, 56 yards. Thanks, Kirk. Boom. Like he was out there shooting free throws, man. He made it look easy. Does it? You know what? Let's do it again. One of my favorite cocky, arrogant, I'm good lines in all of moviedom was Days of Thunder, when Robert Duvall says to Tom Cruise, hey, you got lucky coming out of that turn. You're a little loose there. And Tom Cruise doesn't miss a beat. And he says, if you think it's luck, let's do it again. That is so awesome. I love that line. That wasn't lucky. If you think it was lucky, let's do it again. Put your money where your mouth is. That wasn't luck. That's what I meant to do. Zane gets up there and pushes it through. What was even better, y'all? The Falcons kickoff coverage, shout out to Mike Ford for having an awesome game today, is bad. Overall, the Falcons kickoff coverage is bad. So after that 3-0 kickoff, here comes, I don't remember his name, Mason Tolston, coming free. Zane slows him down enough that they get a tackle. Saves 6. Okay, maybe they'll hold him to a field goal there. No, they took a sack and missed a field goal. He saved points completely. Zane. Awesome game. See, that was a game-changing pair of plays right there with a 56-yard field goal and a touchdown saving at least redirection. If he didn't make the tackle, he at least shepherded him in. What do we call containing? He contained him from scoring. Great play on that. JM Huddle, thank you for the super chat. It says 1 W down, 6 more to go. What are the standings now? Shall we look at the standings here? NFL standings. Is there even a chance at 9-8 if they run the table? Let's see. Probably not, because the 49ers are 7-4 and the Lions are 7-4. Packers are 7-3-1. The Seahawks are 8-3. So this isn't the year. The best chance you would honestly have is catching the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers have the worst record of all the playoff teams. And when people talk about you've had all of this opportunity and you've been in the NFC South and you're still going on your 8th year of non-playoffs, this is what they're talking about. The teams that are in the playoff race right now, because Detroit's sitting on the outside looking in right now at 7-4. The team with the worst record at 6-4 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So your best chance is actually winning the South, I guess. Barney Young, great to see you, my friend. I hope you were doing well. Long time friend here. We were in the business together too. If this is the right Barney Young, and I would imagine it is. Hope you're doing well down on the South Side. He says, "We dat. Always good to beat the Aints." Yeah, there's only, growing up, Barney's closer to my age, so I probably got another 10, 15 years on you. But, when we were growing up, the only team you could beat were the Saints. Sean Payton and Drew Brees changed that. But where it leaned more towards New Orleans over the last 20 years. But, it was, again, no matter what happens for the rest of the year, feels good to get that win. Darth Magoo, about time. Hope you're doing well. Corey Benner says the Hawks beat the Pelicans. I haven't watched the Hawks. I watched them a little when they had that run where they were the number 1 overall seed. I haven't watched them since 1998. The NBA locked them out. I was 25 years old, so life's changed, and there's only so much time. But I haven't watched the Hawks really since 98. The NBA locked them out, and I boycotted them. And then that coincided with them becoming the worst team in basketball for the next 10 years. So I was an 80s, early 90s NBA kid. Big time for sure. But not so much anymore. The Dan Man says, Divine Diablo's arm cast looked like an iron hammer hand. What a difference he makes. Somebody on the opposing offense can get hurt. He makes a huge difference. I will not give the Falcons any shtick for Nate Landman not being there. Nate Landman just got a big contract extension from the LA Rams. He would be the highest paid Falcons linebacker now. His 7.5, I think, is what he got, is more than what the Falcons gave Diablo, what the Falcons gave Caden Ellis. He wasn't good for the Falcons, and he had zero opportunity. He had $50,000 of guaranteed money and the veteran minimum for the LA Rams. I mean, it's not like they're like, oh yeah, we just let this guy go. No, he was out of options, and the Falcons signed Diablo. Diablo's been really good. They're going to need somebody else next year though, because JD Bertrand can't be a number 3, and Caden Ellis and Troy Anderson are both free agents on there. So something to think about. Oh, let me see. Kevin says, what do you think made the change up and put a quarterback under center? Do you think it was Penix? I hope not. I hope not. Like I said, it doesn't make sense to me that Penix isn't under center at all, unless they're just terrified of having Eli Wilkinson at right tackle and on the blind side. So we'll see. Burmy Falcons, we can beat the Jets. Yeah, you better hope so. Brandon Lee says JPJ, James Pierce Jr. and Walker are proving that trade is fine. I'm glad they both have been playing insanely good. Yeah, I mean, the Falcons will probably end up giving up pick 10 to 12, somewhere in that range. James Pierce Jr. look like a top 10 to 12 pick to you? Because if he keeps playing like this, he's worth 2 first-round picks. I mean, that's the way an edge rusher is. A bona fide edge rusher in the third year. If they're playing with, it probably moved him up to Jalen Walker had a sack. I hope they gave it to him. It was right close to the line. Moves him up to 5 sacks. He's leading the NFL for rookies. And then James Pierce is up to 3.5, I think. And he was third coming in. That might have moved him up in a second. You get me a rookie contract edge rusher who's leading his class in sacks. Those guys are worth 2 first-round picks apiece. So there we go. Why call it 13 and not 31? I'm not sure what that means. I may have. Oh, there we go. For the personnel, 13. The running back designates what comes next. So it starts with how many running backs you have. I don't know why they decided to go with the running back first and not the tight end on that one. When I said Charlie Kirk, I'm like, that's why I said Charlie Kirk, because Kirk Cousins. I'm like, where'd that come from? Charlie Warner, Kirk Cousins. Because I'd said Kirk 100 times already tonight. That's where I was like, where'd that come from? Trenton, F1U. Trenton, thanks for being a member, my friend. He says, Dorless looking like no reason to mention Jalen who? Big 54. Yeah, Dorless is in his, first real season. He's had some games where he's just looked like a destroyer. Then he's had some games where he hasn't made much of an impact. That's okay. That's expected for a young player. It really takes years 3, 4, 5 for defensive linemen. And frankly, their primes are 26 to 32. So Dorless is just getting started. He's got a big future with this team. He really does. Dan Mans, he says, Cousins and Mooney chemistry is what won us games last season. He played really well today. It's just, it's a shame that Mooney wasn't able to build on what he had going last year. It's going to cost him some money. He made plenty of money, but it's going to cost him some money. It's cost the Falcons some wins this year for sure. That was my number 2 on my takeaways was Cousins to Mooney. I talked about that one. I talked about the defense stepping up to the challenge in the second half. They came out and on those 15 play drive, they ran the ball 10 times. And some of those were probably RPOs, including the last play where they rolled out and decided to throw it. I think it was Ronnie Harrison that played volleyball and spiked it back down at him. That was a very good play. I wish the Falcons could have gotten a first down out of that because then they had to turn the ball right back over to them. 18 minutes. The Saints had it for 16 of those. Ooh, we need to get on that. One of my others was flipping the script. Talk about what are the big problems for the Atlanta Falcons. And just big problems is there's always a problem. That's what I've learned. Because the big problems going in were, has been pressure on the quarterback and red zone efficiency, moving the ball up and down. Well, the Falcons coming into this game had the longest red zone streak in the NFL. 10 straight times they had scored in the red zone, touchdowns. And then the congratulations to David Sills for his first touchdown reception. The little skinny post to David Sills made it 11 straight. And now they're still number 2 in sacks, and they're 1-5. That doesn't make any sense. How can they have the best red zone percentage in the NFL and second most the most sacks over the last 5 games in the NFL, and they're 0-5 in a 5-game losing streak? Because there's always a problem. That's the biggest problem with the Atlanta Falcons right now. But flipping the script, that was a big one. I also put in, as far as one of these, was the Fantastic Four. And I mentioned that earlier. It's fantastic to be able to get pressure on the quarterback with 4. One of my early, y'all have heard me say, and if you're new here, welcome in. You'll hear me say this again. There is no such thing as unbiased. Our experiences shape how we see the world. That's what bias is. 1998 Atlanta Falcons defense had a front 4, I think, that combined for 32 sacks. That 98 defense could whip your tails with 4 guys rushing, and they were dangerous. The genius Vic Fangio, you know how he's a genius? Because his front 4 kills the guys in front of him up at Philadelphia. Man, I'm a genius. I can get pressure on the quarterback with 4 guys. I can stop the run with 4 guys and use 7 to stop, 4 receivers. Genius. Well, the Falcons did it with 4, and they did it with Jalen Walker, James Pierce. Leonard Floyd's been good when he's been on the field. He has. I wouldn't mind seeing him come back on another decent money veteran deal if the Falcons can afford it until he completely runs out of gas. He's been good. I mentioned Dorless. Root got in there for 1 at the very end too. Onyemata, he didn't have the sack, but boy, did he have a bust through tackle for loss where he introduced himself to, I think it was Lane, the running back, and hopefully Kamara's okay. He went down awkwardly on that play. It wasn't a hip drop tackle. He just kind of, as Caden Ellis was coming across him, he kind of tries to throw him off his back, and that took all their momentum away from him, and he fell backwards on his knee and ankles. So hopefully then he'll be okay. Let's see here. I want to check the I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and move my way back up to the top. And Connie Paws says, big problem in the ownership group is Rich McKay still there. We know, big problem, number 1. But when we talk about the big problems for the Atlanta Falcons, it seems like when they solve one, there's something else going on. Maybe that's just it. But yeah, the big problem is there's always a problem. I always find these kind of comments ironic. Nobody cares about this meaningless win, says the guy coming into a Falcons podcast after a win to comment on the game. That's the definition of caring, brother. An irony. Ironic? Hypocritical? Take your pick on that. I always say, who cares? Well, usually people that take the time to comment, they care. Thank you very much. One of my other takeaways on this, Jay, hope you're doing well. Good to see you. One of my Pope alum friends. Hope you're doing well, Jay. Good afternoon. Another takeaway on this one for me was the Kyle Pitts countdown has begun. Drake London's out. Darnell Mooney hasn't been very good. David Sills, lifetime special teamer. Casey Washington, we haven't seen anything from him. Kaderl Hodge, another lifetime special teamer. You need Kyle Pitts to step up. Drop. 2 catches, 25 yards. 6 more games of Kyle Pitts as a Falcon, and then he's done. I just can't see really any way, anyhow. He is back unless the market for him is so cold that he has to accept a 1-year, $5 million deal. And I'll have him back on that. This is going to sound like heresy to people, but let me explain myself because I put it in writing and I put the words in there to back it up. Kyle Pitts is a decent pro. He's, 10, 11 in yards or so and this and that and blah, blah, blah. He'll be a pro for a long time. He is this generation's version of Andre Bruce. What? Andre Bruce is the biggest bust of all time. No, he's actually not. Andre Bruce, believe it or not, lasted in the league for 11 years. Andre Bruce was in the NFL. If you stay in the NFL for 10 years, you did something right. So Andre Bruce was in the league for 11 years. There's guys like Bruce Pickens, who was the number 3 overall pick that was out of football in a year and a half. Tony Smith, the guy they traded to the Green Bay Packers, the first-round pick from Southern Miss out of running back. He had 1 year of gaining a yard from scrimmage at running back. Those are bigger busts. Kyle Pitts is going to be a long-term, decent pro who never, ever, ever lived up to his hype of being the number 4 highest drafted tight end of all time. So history as a Falcon will think of him as a bust, kind of like Andre Bruce. That's on my think on that. That's my thoughts on him for that. And, Pitts would be nasty with the Chiefs. Maybe, but he's had every opportunity in the world to stand up and stamp his name. I just don't think he's got, the old phrase. I feel like too old to use this phrase. He doesn't have the dog in him. He doesn't want it. He doesn't have the nasty streak, the arrogant streak, the I'm better than everybody than you streak. That's my ball. I demand it. And if you throw it near me, it's mine. He doesn't have it. And the old phrase in scouting was, if they don't bite you as puppies, they're not going to bite you as dogs. Soft now, soft later. So it's tough. I've seen exceptions to that rule. Derrick Henry is one of the biggest exceptions I've ever seen in that rule. I watched him in high school. Oh my God, he was soft. Super soft and mentally soft. He was 6'3", 230 and was a 100-meter state champion. So he rushed for 5,000 yards at Yulee High School, but he became a completely different person under Nick Saban, and I'm happy for him. On that, Ryan Adonis, good to see you. He says, if he had Tyler Warren's heart, he'd be the best tight end. How about Ben Watson? Somebody like that. Ben Watson he was an animal. He was stiff, comparatively speaking, to, a fluid athlete like Kyle Pitts. But that was one of my takeaways. He's done. The countdown has begun, and it's 6 games left, and Kyle Pitts will not be an Atlanta Falcon after that, is what I think of. Mentioned kickers. Another one was the Great Zane, was how I titled that. I also said I gave a shout out to D. Alford as well. D. Alford had a very good game. D. Alford isn't great in coverage. There's no other way to put it. He's not great in coverage. Well, you kind of need that of your nickel. Yeah, but kind of. In this day and age, a nickel is a hybrid outside linebacker. So when they freelanced him, we used to call those old positions, a wandering safety. We'd call him a rover, you call him a star, or one of those other type of positions they call, the gator position. A rover is the way. It's almost, like an old-fashioned free safety. When he was allowed to freelance, he's attacking the line of scrimmage. He recovers a fumble, makes a huge couple of tackles at the end. And just to stop first downs. And he was good. He was instinctive. He was physical. He was good. When he has to chase a guy 30 yards across the field, he's in trouble. When he's lined up against 6'6" Devon Vele in the slot, he's in trouble. But when he's allowed to freelance and use his instincts and make plays, basically the guy I thought Clark Phillips was going to be for this team, he had a good game. He had a really good game. So shout out to D. Alford as well. Dog Father 1. I didn't look at your avatar before I read I figured out what the name was, and I was like, oh yeah, it's spelled out for you right there, dummy. I'm the dummy. Dog Father 1, thank you for the super chat. He says, a win is a win. Good seeing something other than the pistol formation. Yeah, and it's, again, when you're troubleshooting things, you've got to go to the first thing that could possibly break. Is it the pistol, or is it just the fact that they run the ball every time out of the pistol? I don't know that necessarily that the pistol's wrong. I just think that it's that you run the same play out of the pistol that's wrong. Until you're not running the same play out of the pistol every time, how do I know if it's the pistol or not? I know that play. I know running it every time you're in this formation doesn't work. What about trying something else? Maybe that'll work. So we'll see. David T, a reason to care. We don't get shut out in the division. Yeah, first win, they started off, 5-0? No, they started off 4-0, and they were 0-5 since. So 5-5 in the Raheem Morris. Rope Dope, what are your thoughts on Penix? That's a multi-level question that we probably need to dedicate a show to, honestly. Maybe even in the off season. My thoughts on Penix is that he's going to get another shot because they don't have a first round pick this year. Well, they do, but he's wearing number 27, and he was good in coverage too. Do you see him pick up that pass, drop him back in coverage too? He's wearing number 27 too. And that's their first round pick this year. And he's on a rookie contract. So he's not going anywhere, because he's got guaranteed money and he's relatively cheap for a quarterback. Do I think he's the long-term answer? I don't know. I don't know. The injuries, and frankly, the shell shock from the injuries, make me have my doubts. Does he have a first-round talent arm? Absolutely. Is he going to be the long-term answer for this team? I don't know. I think he will get another chance to prove it next year. I think we'll have a different offensive coordinator to prove it with next year. I think he will have more weapons at wide receiver next year in order to prove it. And I do expect him to be playing most, if not all, the games next year. And again, I've said this before, when you hear people say 9-month recovery, that means 9 months till they're playing again. And it might not be 9 months. It might be 10, 11 months. It doesn't mean 9 months before they're out of traction, before they're out of a wheelchair, before they're allowed to do anything. I mean, hell, he'll be walking around on with a brace 2 weeks after he's had surgery. So there's things you can do without being ready to play NFL football. So his development shouldn't be stunted that badly. Unless the injury affects him in more ways than one. That's the fear. That's the fear on that. But who do I think will be the starting quarterback? I think Michael Penix will be the starting quarterback next year. I think he will. Michael, good to see you. He says, take the stupid penalties out today and would have helped Atlanta's office. Yeah. 3rd and 1 becomes 3rd and 11 after poor Eli Wilkinson out there. And again, y'all just remember, Eli is a 3rd-string offensive tackle. He is a 2nd-string guard. He's doing the best he can. It's not his fault that he's out there. He's doing the best he can. And David says that Pitts will be a decent guy on a stacked offense. What would you call this? He wasn't. And again, like you're saying, Well, like I guess what I was saying, he wasn't drafted to be a nice number 3 or number 4 option. He was drafted to be the dude. He was drafted to replace Julio Jones, not to be an average tight end. He's a jag. He's just a guy. Well, you can be just a guy for a long time in this league. He can be a 30 catch, 500-yard wide receiver or a tight end for 10 years. He's 25 years old. Already in his 5th year. He can do that till he's 30 and put $50 million in the bank. I don't know that he's ever going to be much more than that, though. And then, well, what about blah, blah, blah? You know, when he had Matt Ryan, that was 4 years ago, man. He was a 20-year-old kid. That was 4 years ago. That's a lifetime in this league. So we'll see. We'll see, Ryan. Glad you can make the live today, Ryan. I saw you, seen you in the comments here recently, too. As far as I'm concerned, this is Kirk's team to lose. Kirk has starter charisma quality after seeing him in person. Yeah, Ryan, he's got $57 million contract next year. No way. And again, he is 37 right now. He'd be 38 next year with a $57 million cap hit and a just no way on that. It just the finances don't make sense, and they're not. Well, they could always restructure him. I had some guy tell me that. You've never heard of restructures? Yeah. Do you think the Falcons want to push more money? Restructuring usually involves paying somebody more money than you've already paid them or owe them. You think they want to put more money onto the Kirk Cousins tab? Are they that stupid? Do I need to ask that? Do I need to put that out there in the ether? Are the Atlanta Falcons that stupid that they would put more debt onto Kirk Cousins' contract? They can't be that stupid. They just can't be. Nobody's that stupid. Except maybe the Atlanta Falcons. I say it with love. I've earned the scars. I've earned the scars. They're just not going to. And he's not taking a pay cut. You know, no, I'll be a free agent somewhere else. You know, I've got one more year. I don't know that he will want to be a backup next year. He's doing it this year because he got $25 million in guaranteed salary. He would have forfeited $25 million if he wasn't the backup this year. He's not stupid. I'll tell you that. Chris, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. See, I just want at least a halfway decent return form of Kirktober from last season. Yeah, where are the Jets as far as defense goes? Because we know the Jets are below the Saints. For pass defense, the Saints were 23rd in EPA. The Jets are 26th. Unfortunately, the Miami Dolphins were 30th. Are 30th. Even with that game against the Falcons, they're 30th against the pass. But again, that's what happens when you try and run out, you know, a Darnell Mooney who's disinterested. Maybe he's excited again. Kadero Hodge and David Sills instead of lining up and blasting them like you should have on that. So this was better. But again, this isn't the Buffalo Bills win when you're 3-2 and then turn around and lose 5 straight. It's the Saints. And again, it feels a hell of a lot better to beat the Saints than to lose to them. I'll tell you that. But as far as next year, this doesn't change anything. Nothing's changed. Kyle Pitts is toast. Darnell Mooney's toast. Kirk Cousins is toast. Raheem's still in the balance. Zach Robinson won't be here next year. That hasn't changed. That hasn't changed. Ryan said, you know, coming back after what I saw today, I'll take this offense over the crap I saw the last 5 weeks. Sure. Doesn't mean it's good enough, especially not for $57 million. Especially not for $57 million. JJ McCarthy, something has changed. Kirk will sign with some team next year and make a lot of money. We'll see. No one was willing to give the Falcons any money for him this year. If they had picked up $15 million of his contract, I think he would have he would have been gone. Nobody was giving the Falcons any money for him this year. Maybe he can play his way into that. That's what you're hoping for. Maybe they will. You know, maybe he will. Abel, good to see you. Abel 736 with a super chat. Thank you, my friend. Scott, coming from a time when the only Falcon content I could catch was George Michael's Sports Machine highlights, I appreciated all the content. I don't remember that. I was an AJC kid though. I'd watch the games and man, I loved the Monday morning newspapers. The AJC would have 4 guys there. They'd have, a full spread, the front page, at least probably 2 front page stories. And you open it up and they'd have 6 on the inside that was all dedicated to the game. That was my bliss, man. And then guys like me came around in the 90s and put all those guys out of business with the internet. So, where I didn't have to subscribe to the entire AJC just to get the 8 stories I wanted on the Atlanta Falcons. So that was what I was. So on that note, let me just get another reminder here real quick. Be like Michael Quinton and become a member. Let me drop the link. It's in the description. I'm going to drop the link again. Again, it helps a ton, especially for during the slow seasons, especially with trying to fight the algo bots on Facebook and Google, trying to make a living. That your support on the podcast means a hell of a lot to keep us going, and hope we can do it. And JJ McCarthy, I don't know if you're a Vikings fan or not. It doesn't really matter as long as you're, respectful. But 5 season injuries in 7 years as a starter does not bode well for the future with Michael Penix. No, it doesn't. He played 2 injury free at Michigan, and then, he battled injury more than once this year with the Falcons. And you just start wondering, are you seeing shadows out there? That's always the fear of, when they say you don't want to play a quarterback too early, it's usually if you're drafting a quarterback in the top 5, it usually means you were a pretty crappy team to be drafting in the top 5 and might not be able to protect him. And he's going to get out there and get shell shocked because he's getting the hell beat out of him because you've got a crappy team with no offensive line. That wasn't necessarily the case with Penix. Kirk was supposed to take this team in the playoffs last year. He was supposed to be the quarterback this year. Let's not forget that. Kirk got 2 years of guaranteed money, not 1. We weren't supposed to see Penix till next year anyway. Remember Terry Fontenot's famous phrase, if we don't see him for 4 or 5 years, it means we were so good at, that's a good thing. We were so good at the position. Oops. Yeah, on that one. So we'll see. Tony, it's funny. He says, I've seen the Saints beat us when we were a powerhouse and they were in the cellar. I mark the Chiefs as a split every time now. We're going through, when I'm going through the divisions, I just, right now, it's like, okay, 1-1, 1-1, 1-1. It seems to go that way a lot, and that's because there's not a whole lot that separates these teams on this one, especially in the division games. Halsey says Penix is a Falcons QB, if not the Falcons QB. Yeah, he'll be the starter next year. And they'll need to get a better backup option. And by better, I don't mean Kirk's a decent backup option. He played like a very solid backup today. A very solid backup today is $10 million, maybe 15, maybe 15 million, not 57 on that. Not 57 on that one. So those are my thoughts on this. We're about an hour into this thing already. So I want to say thank you to some folks that have come in with some support. Michael, for sure, came in with became a member. Yes, Major, JM Huddle, Barney Young. Barney, it's great to see you. I hope you're doing well. You still down at Banneker? You still in that area? And Dogfather, and yes, wind feels good on that. Abel, for sure, as well. But I am just, here comes Sam, too. I want to say hello to Sam. Right, we just saw Davis Mills get a win on Thursday, not just one. What is Davis? I went and saw Davis at GAC. I love my Georgia boys. And when I mean Georgia Peach State. I didn't actually go to the University of, as many of you should know. Let's see. He came in relief. So he has played 4 now. He beat Jacksonville, at Tennessee, and then he beat Buffalo. So he's 3-1 as a starter. And I think he's got 1 more year left on his deal because someone asked me about this earlier this week, and I looked it up. Hell, it may have been you, Sam. And I looked him up, and I think he's got another year on his deal, and they're not going to be real keen on getting rid of him right now. But it's about $6.5 million. He's probably going to get a raise. He's probably going to get a raise on that one. Davis might be the new Sam Darnold. The new Sam Darnold is Daniel Jones. That's who the new Sam Darnold is. Seems like there's been one guy like that in each of the last 3 years. It's been 3 years ago, it was Geno Smith, who was a lifetime meh, and then had a really good year and got a bunch of money out of Seattle. Then it was Sam Darnold with the Vikings, and then this year is Daniel Jones with the Indianapolis Colts. There's been a guy like that every year, and I think Daniel Jones might have gotten a little bit more money, but I think he's right in that 15 range too, if I'm not mistaken on that. So on that note, y'all, I am going to get out of here. Thank you to all the Super Chat superstars and my new members and all of you who came in and made this so much fun. We will be back tomorrow morning. We'll look over some of the numbers and some of the insides, outsides, and some of the news that comes out of this game, and we'll hit it tomorrow in the Aftermath show. I'm going to get out of here. Y'all have a great rest of your night. Thanks for being here, everybody.